Well, we're snowed in and we don't have a summit to go to. I hope somebody comes and rings my doorbell and offers to shovel snow because it is snowy and cold. I mean, the temperatures are bouncing around. Well, I love teaching, as I've been demonstrating. I hope the few who have enjoyed, or more will come soon. I wanted to touch on the Ten Commandments because I honestly believe, according to the Word of God, they are written on our heart. In evangelism, we use them as like a plumb line, as few can argue any points of the Ten Commandments with any vigor. I mean, they know it's true, all of it. They may, want to have a little dialogue, but in the end, they'll just walk away going, believe what you like. Let me tell you how I teach the commandments, because I have a little different take than most. There are 10 of them, and they're usually broken up into, well, two categories. But I'm going to go through a little bit of a different overview. Like I said, they're usually divided into two groups. Those that have to do with our relationship with God would be part one, and those that have to do with our relationships with each other would be the second part. Mm-hmm. And they usually put like the first four with our relationship with God, and the last six are generally regarded with our relationship with each other, humanity itself. I, however, would put the commandments concerning the Sabbath rest and the commandment in regards to honor your parents in a category that has to do with time itself and relationships you're born into. The first three and the last five are natural groupings of their own. I mean, these two don't just naturally fit in either category. And they certainly don't seem to be relating quite to the same. And the both of them do belong together, and not just because they don't naturally fit well with the other. The Sabbath rest and honoring their parents also belong together in the sense that they are uniquely necessary because of time. And we know time. God is timeless. If it weren't for time, there would be no need to rest one day in 7. And nor would one generation have to relate to another in any certain way regarding one day is different than the other, is different than dealing with one generation to the next, but both are problems of time and the changing roles. And the Sabbath rest kind of concerns the eternal with the temporal. And very basically, how to deal with your parents, it really does work best if we all love one another. I mean, God does endorse a functional family. I mean, we do believe he made the world in 6 days, and on the 7th day he rested. The temporal pattern is his, and he established it. And the one regarding parents, well, we're told that for the benefit of obedience, you'll live long in the land which God would show his people. All the other commandments are of eternal application. We must always love God and our neighbor, and they're concepts that work for time eternal. But resting one day in 7 and relating as parents and children are all temporal and personal problems in that respect. These two are kind of grouped together in a category of their own when I teach. So you're in for an adventure. Let's go ahead and read the first 3 commandments. I am the Lord your God. I need my glasses. Oh my goodness. You shall have no other gods before me. Number 1. Seems rather basic, am I correct? Do not make or worship idols. This does a lot here because it not only says we're doing that. I mean, today Hindus are still, would you need a god of your own? I have an artist. So do not make or worship idols is number 2. It sounds easy, doesn't it? Just don't have idols. And then number 3, do not take the name of the Lord God in vain. And that truly is much deeper of a category. Both of those are much deeper a category than you might have grasped. So let's look at them from the supernatural. I believe the first 3 commandments are prescriptions against the 3 ways in which paganism presents itself all the time: polytheism, idolatry, and magic or control. Paganism and its manifestation are not limited to ancient and primitive cultures. I mean, polytheism, idolatry, and magic are alive and well in modern and very advanced cultures, with the woke even. Martin Luther, he suggested that whatever was of ultimate concern to the individual or group was probably their God. Often, what we find is the ultimate concern, or that's not necessarily the one we trust. If we don't trust in God, well, that's the degree we're a pagan. Just that simple. It's an equation. Our relationship to paganism may not be as blatant as it used to be. I mean, it might, but probably a little more covertly today. In the old days, they advertised pagan temples. For example, Marduk was a Babylonian god who was a deification of the Babylonian state. The Pharaoh of Egypt was regarded as a man god. Julius Caesar was deified. The Egyptians had deified leaders. The Japanese had deified rulers. I mean, it works, so let's go with it. And it did. Also, it's a means of showing your loyalty to the state when you worship it. And modern overt manifestations of the same phenomena include the Nazis making the Aryans superior, the KKK hating the blacks. I mean, it comes in many ways, but it usually is hateful. Now, to what extent do we or others, those among us, deify all kinds of stuff? From your state to your sports team to a political party, even the Constitution, which I believe is really good, but we can worship the wrong things. And we realize in those things that these gods are a deification of nature. The group, tribes, and nations are an example, or one of the 3 P's. Power, pleasure, and personality. All aspects of the mortal self. And they come in many forms. Power can have to do with sheer brute force, money, intellectual properties, pleasures. Oh my goodness, should we even go there? From food to sex to yachts to huge homes. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And personalities, well, many people, there's that many personalities. But paganism overtly adopts idolatry. Idolatry is a much broader and more sophisticated concept than merely crafting gods out of materials or words. It more basically defined as either, and this is very important here, either ascribing to mere natural phenomena or creation things worthy only of the Creator, or, in the reverse, ascribing to the Creator things unworthy of Him. Idolatry is related to polytheism. The gods of idolatry are made-up gods. We fashion them, and we make a Hitler to represent the state. We may deify a vaccine, all sorts of things, the sun, the moon, the weather, the seas, earth, wind, and fire, not the group. Well, maybe in some cases, but we personify them in many ways and deify them. Like the Egyptians did Ra, the Greek Meteoria, who was the weather goddess, the Roman Neptune, the god of the sea. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Look at mythology, it's all about it. I mean, the fire goddess in Hawaii, the deification of sex and fertility for crop insurance. I mean, I don't want to go into what went on in these temples, but there was an entrance fee, kind of like any occult group today. You pay as you go, and you had to have this and this and this. The farmers were acting out the mating tryst with paid prostitutes in the temple of Ashtaroth. I mean, come on, it was debasing, and it was the case of total paganism. These people were ascribing to nature things that should only be worthy to be attributed to the Creator. I mean, we do it daily with money and status, attributes of power. God is the only power. Don't be deceived. To that measure, you're demonstrating your paganism. I'm not taking the Lord's name in vain. We use that so lightly, but we're ascribing to things unworthy of God when we do it. You know, we think it has to do with just OMG, but it doesn't. When we attribute things that we created to Him, we are practicing magic. Actually, the commandment is far more basic and profound than oh my God. It's a prescription against magic, making up gods and then ordering them around, because it's the third way paganism represents itself. And it's also related to idolatry, particularly the part in the definition of idolatry, which is ascribing to the Creator things unworthy of Him. The purpose of magic is just the same as science, really. Prediction and control of nature. Individuals. We used to be able to predict natural phenomena, so they used it as magic for their own purposes. Through magic, people try to control their gods for their own intentions. Individuals and groups make up their gods and then seek to use them for their own means. These ideas can become so twisted that it's not only a matter of abusing these made-up gods for our own selfish ends, but attempting to prevent bad things from happening by appeasing these false gods. I mean, ever light a candle at church? I mean, the more egregious example would be the Aztecs. I mean, you didn't want to be their neighbors. Or the Edomite gods. I mean, these, let's kill our neighbors to satisfy our imaginary gods. I mean, you're continuously throwing your neighbors in a fire. You're not going to be very popular. But it was their magic. They had to have human offerings for their god. The Aztecs were not ideal neighbors. I mean, get caught trespassing, or they would go searching after you. Moloch, excellent example. He pretended to be a powerful god you needed to satisfy, to appease. I mean, they would have a huge steel picture of him or a statue of him like a Buddha, and inside would be a red-hot fire. And when it got hot enough, people would put their children in the arms of the baby, of Moloch, and they would, of course, be killed. They would just wither away as they just cried out while they had breath. And this god would promise them a good crop. And not doing so would avoid a natural disaster. If they hadn't done so, I mean, they could not have avoided the natural disaster. They were using God for their own selfish ends. We so often try to manipulate God. I mean, we've gone from fleecing to shaking down God for generations. We just want to appease. Let's look at these first 3 commandments and what they speak against. And remember that they speak against paganism. Paganism has many gods. It's called polytheism. That the pagans make up idolatry for their own purpose, magic, versus worshipers of the true God acknowledge one God who makes us or you for his own purpose. It's the exact opposite. One God makes us for his purpose, as opposed to us making many gods for our own purposes. We make up various gods for our own purposes. Superstition, force of habit. Pagans have many gods whom they make up for their own intended purposes. People of the covenant have one God who is their creator, who made them for his purposes. Well, that's the first 3. I will go on, as if you've known me well, you know that I will go on. I love the 10 Commandments. As I said, they're written on your heart. So few will argue them. Well, Lord, I pray that on this snowy day, people are warm in their homes, with food in their bellies, on their shelves, and they are comfortable around warmth. Remember, the pagans make up their gods for their own purposes. We worship the one living God because he created us for his purposes. Well, God bless you. We've still got many more commandments to go. God bless you. Thanks for listening. I really like doing this. God bless you. I'm working on the lighting, trying to get it right.